Welcome back, everyone. We have Calvin Ruda here with us from Wild West Wildlife Rehabilitation Center, and today we are meeting an Argentinian Tegu. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about Delilah and how she kind of got into y'all's care.
So Delilah here is a 16-year-old Argentinian Tegu who's actually owned personally by Lisa Talley, one of our reptile rehabbers and educators out at Wild West Rescue and Rehab Center. And these guys, we like to keep around a lot of these different species. For one, Lisa is a huge fan of reptiles and other things, so she takes care of all of our native reptiles that we get over at our center, as well as her own pets. But we like to bring these guys out sometimes for education because they're a fantastic example of an invasive species here in the United States.
Gotcha. And she is very long. Is this kind of typically how long they'll be?
Yes, so these guys, they can grow up to about 4 feet long.
Wow.
They're omnivorous, so they are sometimes carnivorous, right? They can hunt and things like that out in the wild. They're a big part of the pet trade. And that's where their invasiveness starts, right? Now, luckily, around here, it's a little too cold. Right, for these guys, for us to be worrying about it, but especially down in Florida and places like that, these guys have taken up a big part of the invasive species they've got down there.
Oh, wow.
Man,
that's interesting.
Yeah, it looks like a pretty strong lizard.
Yes, yes.
Now, defense tactics. How do they kind of defend themselves against predators?
Now, luckily for us, Delilah here is an absolute sweetheart. She's gotten super used to being handled with people, but out in the wild, as you said, they're very strong, right?
Yeah.
So this tail, for example, they'll whip that, as well. A lot of these kind of larger lizard species, they can kind of use that to smack stuff around.
Oh, wow.
They also have a very powerful bite, right? Now, these guys are not like Gila monsters or Komodo dragons where it's venomous or anything like that, but it would be very unpleasant to be bit by one of these, I'll say that much.
Gotcha.
Now, are they like a cousin to the Komodo?
I think they're probably a little closer related to like monitor lizards and things like that. Komodo's probably a little bit bigger and a little farther away than these guys.
Komodos vicious, man.
Yeah. They're large, too.
Yes, they are.
Yes, they are.
Now, what kind of animals tend to prey on these lizards here?
Well, this is kind of the problem with, particularly in like Florida where they become so invasive, is that there's really not very many things.
Oh, wow.
Especially once they get to their adult size, about 3 to 4 feet long.
Yeah.
Some of the larger snake species will get them when they're juveniles, and of course like alligators and things like that down there, and I assume mountain lions and animals like that are big enough to prey on these things. But outside of that, it's very limited. And these things out in the wild, they live to be about 10 years old. In captivity up to 20 to 25. But they have about 35 eggs a year.
Wow.
You know, so if you imagine these things, once one gets released out in the wild, because this is really what ends up happening is, especially somewhere like Florida where these guys can thrive, because they're natively from South America.
Right.
Somebody, is taking care of it and they can't afford it anymore, whatever, and like, well, I think it'll do well outside, right? And when it comes to like releasing pets, this is something that always becomes an issue, is that it's either bad for the animal that's being released, right, because they can't do well in the environment they're being released in, or it's bad for the environment they're being released in because they're going to do too well when they get put in there. And that's exactly what happens with these guys. They're able to just reproduce like crazy, and there's just not enough things that prey on them. And so they end up just getting absolutely tons of these guys down there.
Goodness,
crazy.
man.
And with them being so large, do they shed often, or is it more like a once a year type of thing?
I think it's not quite as often as, say, for example, a snake would do it, which is about once a month, but yeah, fairly regularly. Probably more so, I'd imagine, in like the summer months or in the warmer places like Florida, right, where they're not going to have to worry about going into brumation, which is kind of like reptilian hibernation, sort of. So around here, the places where it gets a little cold, they're going to slow down a lot and not have to worry about that. But in places where they can be active like year-round, it's going to be pretty common.
Gotcha.
Man, we always learn something new. That's a big lizard. Back, everybody. We're back with Calvin and Delilah from the Wild West Wildlife Rehabilitation Center, and we're talking about the work that they do in the community. So, well, actually, you know what? Let's talk about y'all's Face the Fears. That was this past weekend.
Yes.
How'd that go?
It went absolutely fantastic. And I want to first of all just say a humongous thank you to Trips Harley-Davidson for allowing us to have that event out there.
Yeah.
And for everyone who showed up. and made that event as awesome as it was, not to mention the many people who donated like to our Facebook Live events to help make sure we got all that candy that we needed to be able to give it out to the kids.
Yeah.
We had, I believe it was over 1,000 people show up. We got to show them, I believe Delilah was out there alongside. We had some snakes. We had Walter, our nutria. McGee the skunk. We had Polly the badger out there. And obviously a bunch of cute costumes and stuff with everybody. So it was a fantastic time.
Yeah, and I'm curious, did you get many reactions, kind of like Ro and I had, or were
Yes,
people more
very
calm and
common.
collected?
It was, you had the whole gambit of people who were so excited that they were just instantly trying to go for a touch, and those who had to take a good couple feet of safety distance away from everything.
It takes a
And then
moment.
some of them got to warm up to it,
they gotta warm up.
Oh yeah, and I'm curious. Speaking of like the lizards in Wild West, like how many lizards do y'all have there, and what kinds?
So it really varies, because one of the big things is that we generally speaking don't see reptiles as often. And the other thing is that we have another organization here who takes care of reptiles specifically, right? And so oftentimes, like when we get venomous snakes and things like that, we'll give them a call to come in and help take care of them for us, because it just kind of helps balance those things out a little bit. But right now, I believe in terms of lizards, in the rehab center or in the rescue center, we've got, let's see, Delilah, I think we have about 5 or 6 lizards, probably about 4 snakes, and then a few turtles and tortoises. The turtles and tortoises are just heading in for basically brumation or hibernation now, since it's getting cold.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That's just a testament to the work that y'all do in the community. Not only for these animals, but really for the public's interest as well. And they can come take a tour of the facility, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Fridays at 3. We welcome anybody who wants to come out, and always, of course, you can give a call to schedule ahead of time, or if there's like a different time that maybe you want to try to get out there, we'll do what we can to work with you to figure that out. And yeah, we'll give a full tour of our education center. Unfortunately, we can't give a tour of our rehab centers because those are limited to the public for health and safety reasons, among other things.
Absolutely.
But yeah, with our education building, where we have like our education ambassadors like Lincoln the Fox and Polly the Badger and Delilah. That's all animals you get to meet when you get to come in and take our tours.
Gotcha.
Y'all got a fox, man. That's pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
And real quick, if people can't make it out, they can catch y'all on Facebook. Right?
Yeah, Facebook, usually every Friday at 2, we've got Facebook Lives. And on that Facebook, we've also usually got public postings about any big events or anything we've got going on, in case there's another time where folks can catch us out and about.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really